Thank you all for coming this evening. Let me call to order the City Council meeting here on the 28th day of November. The press and public have been duly notified. I'm going to ask everybody please rise for an invocation. Pledge of Allegiance. Let us bow our heads. O Heavenly Father, we ask for your guiding hand as we strive to protect this island we call home. We cherish the land, the sea, and the marsh, and all your creatures which surround us. Please keep in your heart all those who are leaving council tonight, and empower all those preparing to lead the city to work in your name for the generations to follow us all. We give thanks to you for all that we have, particularly our families, our friends, and our neighbors. And we ask that you bless them all. For it is in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Marie, please call the roll.
Councilmember Bergworth. Here. Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Corinne. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Harrington.
Here.
Councilmember Kinghorn.
Aquí.
Councilmember Rice.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Mayor Cronin.
Present.
Administrator Tucker. Here. And Attorney Halbert. Here.
Thank you all. Next item is a reading of journal of previous meetings. You have two items in your agenda. The visioning meeting back a year ago, November 16th. You now have the minutes, and then the regular meeting of October 24th. Can I have a motion to approve each?
So moved.
Second.
And seconded. Any deletions, corrections, amendments?
Think back on that November
16th. All right. That's why we have minutes. You don't have to think back. You can refer back. All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Citizens' comments. We'll get through one here quickly. Citadel Brigadier Foundation 5K Run Walk has been recommended for September 29th to be considered as a city-sponsored event. And I think she wants to talk to us. What do you think?
No,
Suzanne Chisholm is...
that's right. I'm here just to answer any questions. I'm on the board of directors for the Brigadier Foundation.
This has already been through the Public Safety Committee, and all of the insurance requirements and all that stuff has been communicated. Anybody have any questions?
Where will it be?
It's going to be at the Siddle Beach House, and it's going to be a run that begins and ends at the beach house, down the beach and back, and starts and finishes there.
Suzanne, just for the benefit of the residents here, a brief overview.
Of the Brigadier Foundation.
Yes, ma'am.
We raise money for athletic scholarships at the Citadel, and I'm a 04 grad at the Citadel, and so got involved with the board and thought this would be a great way to raise awareness about the foundation, reach a different audience.
We had a run on the beach, I'm going back too many years ago. We had a lost runner. I found him on the beach. He had missed a turn. he ran an extra 5K.
To the Windjammer?
So I hope you have appropriate
Signage.
or whatever you have out there to turn them around and make sure they make their way back.
Right.
Yeah. That was the strangest thing I've ever run into. So any questions further for Susan? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, you have a city-sponsored event, September 29th.
Thank you.
Have you checked the tides?
Check the tides.
Okay, good.
We went through all that. She's
All right,
well prepared.
on top of it. All right.
Thank you.
All right, before we go into the audit, any other citizens wishing to address council? Sir.
Thank you. I'm Bob Miller. I'm in Wild Dunes, and I've been a permanent resident for the past year, which we just love. So what a wonderful place you all have, and we appreciate. One of the reasons we moved down here is because of all the outdoors activities we could have, and walking and trails and parks and so forth. And now, with the increase in the number of coyotes to significant levels, we're not able to do all the things we expected to do, and not just but us, but there's tens and dozens of people in Wild Dunes that say we don't take the walk anymore. We don't take a walk in that direction anymore. So we're having to change our habits to coexist with animals who were brought here illegally to South Carolina years ago. They're not indigenous. There's no natural predators. They just kill deer, and they kill cats, and they kill dogs. And hopefully they'll never get a kid, but if they get any more aggressive, they might. So we formed a group in Wild Dunes. We'd like to connect it with the city and not make it a we-they thing. Jimmy and I were just talking about that. And we'd also like to become more aggressive in trapping, and that's what we're pushing Wild Dunes to do that. And they're also going to try to do it during the right trapping time, which is December to March, and not do it like last year where we were way late on that and didn't work very well. We're also in favor of soft traps, and I won't let the experts get into that part, but because the box traps don't work, and the soft traps seem to work better. So that's what I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I don't know what we can do now between now and the next council, but I'd be open to comments on how we can get involved and get agreement between us, and that would be with Dave at Wild Dunes. So he's working with us on this.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, I just want to add one thing because I'm here with Bob, and that is that there definitely is a sense of urgency.
State your name.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
My
your
name's
address.
Judy Gogol, and I'm a resident here part-time, but all winter long and just rent in the summer.
Just your address.
And 8 Summer Dunes Lane, okay? And I'm recognizing it's a problem throughout Isle of Palms, not just in Wild Dunes, but I just wanted to stress the sense of urgency, because when you do the research, you'll see that the coyotes' mating season is January, February, and then 60 days later they have pups again. So the number that we have now is going to multiply very quickly. The other thing is that I also read that trapping season is really just December until March. And I'm not sure if that's still the law, if that carries through, but if that's the case, we have to make some decisions very quickly here. So I just wanted to bring that to
I don't
everyone's
think that's
attention.
law. That's not law.
We trap
Okay.
all year.
We trap all year.
Okay.
So
Okay,
they
good.
don't like the traps, and they don't.
Right. Right.
We didn't catch one, but okay. Thank you. All right. Any other citizens before we get into our audit? All right. Now we have passed out before everybody on council here at least the results of the last audit, but I'm going to ask Justin. Is he here? Here he is. And Lindsay, who's going to speak?
Unfortunately, it's not Justin and Lindsay. It's Melissa and Chris.
Oh.
But Justin and Lindsay was last year, on there last year. So hopefully you're not too disappointed here. But I'm Melissa Kitty,
Is this not the
and
same?
this is Chris Herb. This is another report that we're going to go over with you all.
Wow.
This one's thinner, at least.
Which one are we starting with?
We are starting with the big one, report on the financial statements. So the financial statements for the city is about 80 pages, and I'm just going to hit a few of them. But by all means, please, if you have questions or anything, just let me know. We're McKay Kitty. I'm Melissa Kitty. I think Justin Kitty presented last year. That's both my business partner and my husband. And this is my manager here, Chris Kerr. We are a local firm in Mount Pleasant, been here for 25, 30 years, started by Gordon McKay. And this is our second year that we have audited the city. So just wanted to introduce us, and we'll get started. If you turn to page 1, which is a couple of pages in, this is the independent auditor's report. This is why you have the audit that you have. It's broken out into sections to talk about the report, management's responsibility, the auditor's responsibility, but everybody wants to know, kind of the bottom of the page there is the opinion. The city received an unmodified, which is also called a clean opinion. That's the exact opinion you want. On the financial statements, it means your financial statements present fairly. If you flip over to the next page, it's just a little bit more on the financial statements, talking about supplementary information. And then also there's an additional report that I'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation by the government auditing standards for internal controls. So the financial statements are broken off. I like to break things off into sections. Your first section here is, starting with page 3, is your MD&A. That's your management discussion analysis. These are items that you all really present to us to help give additional information for the numbers in the financial statements. We're going to skip past most of that, and we're going to flip over to page, let me see here, page 15. So page 15 is really the start of the city's financial statements. The financial statements in here, you really have two sets of financial statements. You have government-wide financial statements, which is a full accrual basis of accounting. What that means is you're going to have, you're going to see capital assets, you're going to see debt, you're going to see pension obligations on this first set of financial statements. Then we have another set of financial statements that I'm going to talk about shortly that you're more used to seeing, which is fund basis. So on the page 15 here, this is your statement of net position. And we have total assets for the city is $47 million. Within that, it includes $10.6 million of unrestricted cash, $11.4 million of restricted cash, and then $23.2 million of that is capital assets. Moving down to total liabilities, we have total liabilities of $24 million. This includes about $10 million of recording that pension adjustment. That's been on the books now for a couple years. And then just shy of $5 million of deferred revenue related to the beach restoration fund. Brings us to a net position of $24.7 million. $2.8 million of that is unrestricted. $14.7 million is what we call net investment in capital assets. That's your capital assets less any debt with it. And then the remainder, $7.3 million, is restricted. Flipping over to page 16, you kind of got to turn that sideways, is our statement of activities. Looks a little strange. It's not kind of the typical profit and loss you're used to seeing, but starts out with the expenses. Up at the top, we have some revenues for services and operating capital, and then down below it you'll see some more general revenue. The key numbers that you're looking for at the very bottom, you see changes in net position. This is really kind of the surplus of the city, and it's just shy of $2.9 million for the city for the year. In there includes both the governmental activities and the marina. All right, moving over to the next set. So the next set is kind of what I call the second set of financials, the fund basis financials. This is more what you're used to seeing. This is what you all budget off of. You know, the funds are going to look very familiar in here with the general fund, capital projects funds, etc. If you flip to page 19, that's going to have our totals for the governmental funds on the balance sheet. And this is, I forgot to say, the fund basis is a modified accrual, so it's not going to have those capital assets, it's not going to have the debt. It is going to have some accruals. It's going to have AP, receivables, deferred revenue, so it's considered kind of a modified accrual basis of accounting there. So we have total assets of about $24.2 million. We have total liabilities of $6.7 million. And then we have a fund balance sitting at $17.4 million. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the fund balance. When we had our exit conference, we talked a good bit about the disaster recovery reserve. And that's obviously a big topic. We've had a couple storms the past few years. Are we covered? Are we not covered? What's the magic number? You know, you don't want to hold too much of taxpayers' money, but you want to be prepared. So we definitely had some conversations about that, and both Chris and I did some research just to see, okay, what are other cities doing? What other beach towns? What kind of reserves? Is there a norm out there? And I'll tell you that there's a wide range of what cities are reserving. Sadly, a lot are not reserving what they should be reserving. The most typical percentage we saw was about 10% of your normal operating expenses. I personally felt like 10% was a little bit low. To put that at where you guys are at, your disaster recovery is at 16%, just that fund balance by itself. You also have an unassigned fund balance of approximately 19%, and then we have some other fund balances as well that's not included in there. To just give you kind of a perspective of, hey, where's the city at compared to some of the other numbers we've seen. So moving on, page 20 is just a reconciliation for any of you that want to kind of understand what we're doing, why we're doing it. It takes you from fund balance to government-wide basis for the net position. Then if you flip over to pages 21, 22, 23, this is essentially kind of your profit and loss for your fund accounts. So this is your statement of revenue and expenditures and changes in fund balance for the year. So we had total revenue of $16 million. We had total expenditures of $13.3 million, bringing us to revenues over expenditures for the year of $2.7 million. We did have we did transfer some funds over to the Marina, and so that brings us to a net change in fund balance of $2.4 million for the year. And then on page 24, this is just another reconciliation between the fund balance and the government-wide. The next set of statements is what we call proprietary funds. This is your Marina, and it includes statement of net position, statement of revenues and expenditures. So your statement of net position, there's total assets within the Marina of $6.1 million, total liabilities of $600,000, and so we have a net position of $5.5 million. And for the year, we had revenue of $425,000 and operating expenses of $329,000. And again, we had that transfer in of the $280,000, giving us a change in net position of $368,000.
Would you say that again, please? Change in that position.
Change in net position is $368,000 for the Marina.
Right.
So, flipping over one more page here. Does a cash flow analysis for the Marina, and then on page 28 is the volunteer fire department. They're considered a fiduciary fund, and they have approximately $200,000 in cash right now. The next part of your statements is what I call the notes to the financial statements. It runs from page 29 to 58. I by no means am going to read this to you. If any of you can't sleep, pick it up tonight and read through it, and I bet it helps. There have been no significant changes for the notes for this year. There will be some changes next year. We have some new pronouncements that are coming into effect for the next fiscal year. But for this prior fiscal year, it's going to look very similar, feel very similar to your last year's audit. So I'm going to just skip on by all that. And then...
Well, I got a question about the notes.
Sure, go ahead.
Are there any provisions for contingencies?
So commitments and contingencies are on page 58. There was nothing that material that we reflected in the notes. But on page 58, we talk about commitments and contingencies, note F there.
So, obviously, you got a attorney's letter.
Yes. Sorry. Yes, we got an attorney's letter and confirmed that there was nothing outstanding there.
Really?
So I know there's some litigation going on, and what we confirmed with them is that there wasn't any exposure to the city at this point, and so there was nothing that we would have to reflect and record in the financials.
Now, is that short-term contingency or long-term, or both?
That's both.
Okay, thank you.
The next part of your financials are various schedules and statements. They include various things for budgets, showing variances. There's also some pension schedules that are required. This just gives you additional details from the front of the financial statements. And so then the last thing I want to talk about in the financials is on page 82 and 83. This is the additional report that I had mentioned earlier. It's report on internal control, and basically identifying if there was any compliance findings or issues that we came across when we did the audit, and we found none. So that's what this report's telling you on page 82 and 83.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions on the financials?
Question.
Sure.
Melissa, on the disaster, you said that we have 16%. Our budget, roughly just over 10 million. Hurricane Hugo hit us in '89. It took us several years, 3 or 4 years to recover. When y'all looked at other communities, beach communities, did you ask those same type of questions as for how long it took to recover?
Well, the data we pulled is really kind of from the sites and from information. So I didn't speak to anyone to see how long it took them to recover. Now, keep in mind when you have this money, like the money's kind of a bridge there. So you should be getting federal dollars, you should be getting state dollars, you should be getting insurance proceeds in to kind of help offset the brunt of those expenses. But we were just pulling kind of data to see how much different cities, different towns had. If there was benchmarks, I think we found a couple articles that had talked about desired reserves and what's the goal, the target to try to hit.
Do you have to recall which cities you talked to?
I can get it over to you. I don't know. Off.
Wilmington,
Remember?
Rexville Beach.
There was one down. There were a couple down in Florida, and I don't think we saw Wilmington. So, let's see how the other one.
Yeah, City of South Miami.
So we can certainly go and see if we can pull that.
Just kind of compare like
Right.
kind of communities for like kind of communities.
Right.
Thank you.
Sure.
Another question,
South
please.
Miami's a like.
I would say, yeah, Wrightsville Beach would be a light kind of community.
Remind us how many local governments you work with, approximately.
This is our only local government. We work with multiple, the schools, the charter school districts and things like that,
Okay.
so that have similar set of financial statements.
I appreciate your benchmarking mechanism. We did this ourselves last year in our planning session, and we determined the same, that we're in very good position in terms of our balance relative to other communities dealing with these kinds of disasters. So that's very helpful, especially for policymakers, both to have an independent opinion as well as benchmarking. Thank you.
Well, you didn't really give an opinion on the health of the city. Your job was to express an opinion on the presentation of the financial statements. Is that not correct?
Correct.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
So I have another handout for you all. It should say report to the Honorable Mayor and members of City Council. This is just required communication that comes from us to you all. It is much shorter. If you flip over to the first page, this letter discusses any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we found during the audit process. And if you read through it, we found none, so that's good news, and I'm required to report that to you as well. If you flip over to the next page, page 2, and really 2, 3, and 4 here, this gives you just a little bit more information about our responsibility, plan, timing, and scope. If we came across any significant difficulties, which we did not, any uncorrected and corrected misstatements, representations from management. So this just gives you additional information about our audit process. And if you flip over to page 5 through 9 is a management rep letter. So this is something that both Linda and Debbie signed and sent back to us, and they're just representing to us basically that they were truthful, that they gave us all of their information, that that they turned over everything that they were supposed to. And you all are, this is part of our communication to you all, that you can see what they represented too. And then the last page, page 10, we're required to show any journal entries that we posted. We had 2 journal entries. I really don't count them as our journal entries. These are journal entries that the auditor has posted in the past, and I got with Debbie, and she actually plans on posting them going forward. She's more than capable to do it. It's just no one had ever asked her to in the past. So wanted to give those to you, to show them to you, but my guess is there's not going to be any adjustments next year because she has the ability to post that as well. So just speaking for the audit went very well. It's enjoyable to work with these folks. They do a good job. and have everything organized and to us in a timely manner, so we appreciate that. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention, there is going to be some differences this coming year. You guys will draw down on federal funds. Expected to have a single audit this year, so we've been talking to them about coming out probably in May. Hopefully most of the funds will be spent by that point, that we can go ahead and get started on the compliance audit. Also, there's a new accounting software that has been implemented, so we're going to get in here and we're going to look at the internal controls, the processes, make sure that everything's still working the way it should be. So anytime you have change, we need to understand kind of what that change is and make sure that we're on par. So we plan on doing that hopefully April, May, get out here a little bit before year end and make sure it's all
Can you
running
explain to
smoothly.
people what a single audit means?
Sure. So a single audit, anytime you spend over $750,000 worth of federal funds, there's an additional audit that goes in place, and it's really to test the compliance. And when I say compliance, when you have federal funds, there's always a budget. You always need to spend in accordance to your budget, and that's ultimately what we're checking. We're checking to make sure you spent it the way you said you were going to, that it was allowable. Sometimes you have eligibility requirements in there that we have to test. So we have a range of items that we'll tick off, and we'll go through and we'll pull that data and make sure that the city spent the money the way they were supposed to spend it according to the federal guidelines.
There's a little extra cost for that, isn't there?
There is.
Right. Has that been budgeted for this year yet or not?
I believe so. So we had included it in our initial proposal because I think at that time you all knew that there may be a year or two where the single audit would come in place.
Isn't this the first year we're subject to it?
Correct.
Yes.
Any other questions for
just
our
have one.
auditors? Carol's got
I just think
Sure.
next year for the viewing public and the benefit, there should be a PowerPoint.
Sure.
So that people could see,
Good
because
point.
it's
Good
so hard to even
Right.
follow without some sort of visual.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Mayor? excuse
Please,
me.
Sandy.
There's a reason why we received these tonight and not ahead of time in a packet.
They were brought, I think you guys brought them with you, didn't you?
Yeah, we brought them with
So
us.
they
But there
were-
wasn't any, I mean, we could have done them earlier. But,
So they were prepared earlier, so
Mhm.
they
Yeah.
could have been given to council ahead of time. I'd suggest next year that we at least have them in our packet so we can review, so we can kind of know what she's talking about rather than flipping the pages while she's
Well,
going
the
on.
reports are dated November 20th. So 7 days or 8 days.
And last question.
Sure.
Did I misunderstand? This is the only city you do, otherwise you do school boards and
right, this is the only city we currently have as a client.
just more curiosity than anything else?
Sure.
Kind of hard to compare us to another city without having, those kind of, that's why I asked about the disaster, in comparing to other cities.
Right.
So, thank y'all.
Sure.
Well, if they do nonprofits, it's,
Just
it's like the CPA saying, well, I do a grocery store and I also do a delicatessen. But you don't do any more grocery stores, huh? We're still in food service, so that, I don't do the stuff they do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have very similar entities. The cities, we're about a 20-person firm, so we're not going to go do, some of the larger cities. It would, wouldn't be good for us, just time management wise. But there are a couple of cities that we've been talking to and trying to do, or trying to get kind of on the RFP list.
Well, you've got a great reputation.
So, good.
Marty?
Like the folders this year, too.
Good.
Quick question.
Sure.
Although you don't do other municipalities, when you compared the disaster recovery funds, you did in fact look at other cities to see what their
Correct.
percentages were.
Right. So it's, the audited financial statements, a lot of them you can get publicly and you can pull those. And so that's what we're looking at, is taking their audited financial statements and kind of seeing what they have and, matching
Right.
it
I
up.
want to make sure everyone understood.
Knowing that we were going to go through this tonight, I was interested that your fund balance total was $17,418,000. Marty has served on council here for 20 years. 20 years ago, the fund balance for the city was $2,543,000.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely,
Well done, Marty.
it's definitely a healthy fund balance, healthy balance sheet.
It didn't cost us the city to
and-
run for a year.
I really wish we had lots of other cities and everyone that operated as you all do.
Well, I mean, I looked up, since Sandy and Patrick came on, it's gone from 10,600,000 to 17,400,000. So in just,
5 million
you know, we've almost 60-some% increase in fund balances in that
Are you
4-year
blaming them?
period.
Fund
For having too much money? No.
Fund balances.
Fund balance is the way, at least I manage. So my wife knows that, at least. So. I thank you. I don't think there's any other questions.
Thank y'all.
Good job.
No problem.
Put all this stuff aside and read it tonight, like you say. All right, no other citizens' comment. We'll move on to reports from various committees. I'll try and move through the Ways and Means Committee report. We heard from our treasurer. The city's finances, if I can find my table here, are in good order. Our receipts are exactly where they were this time last year. And our expenditures are 2 points less than they were last year. We're 30% of our expenditures, and last year we were 32%. As indicated, our fund balances, with the funds we have on hand from the Wild Dunes beach restoration and from the PRT funds, we currently have $25.9 million in the bank, relative to $16 million last year. But if you take those funds out, we're at $18.1 million versus $16 million last year. So even after the audit, our fund balances have continued to increase, which is good news, because we're going to be spending some for storm drainage and other matters. And our revenues are in line, as I indicated before. We have received accommodations tax from our tourism activities. We received the first payment from the state of $518,000, $2,000 less than what it was last year, but I wouldn't worry about that, because the first quarter is never representative of actually what transpired. They do the Robin Hood provision in the September period, so there's no way to tie them all out. Municipal accommodations tax is running currently at 2% ahead of where it was last year, and that means our beach restoration preservation fund is also 2% of where it was last year. Our hospitality tax receipts are down, but as I heard from Debbie, we had 2 late payers, so I expect that will be caught up, since there's no lack of eating and drinking on the island. Our county made a payment to us significantly less than last year, but it's anticipated they're going to be making a second payment, which hopefully brings us back in line with what we received from. They collect 2% accommodations tax and then pass back to municipalities a piece, and hopefully it's in line with where we were last year. So our funding's in order. Our projects, no significant change in our projects activities. The NPDES washdown facility is virtually complete, and we're waiting for the final punch list and to be closed off. The drainage project is underway. We'll be dealing with a change order in that project here in a moment, but if I heard Sandy right, she's concluded that it's 10% through the process. So it will emerge into the public domain in not too distant future. It's just been nested back in the marina area thus far. And then the beach restoration project, there's been no activity on that. We would expect that the end of December, 1st of January is the last date we've heard from Great Lakes Dredging, who has the contract, who probably is going to take up residence here, because they've got the contract for the harbor as well, both contracts down there. So, well, we think ours is a big one. I mean, it's all relative. So that's our financial report from our treasurer. We did have a report that the BS&A implementation of our new accounting system has moved well. We've gone through the first month of the documentation showing the fund balances and the statements through that system, and the staff has worked admirably to make it work well. To Debbie's credit, she was on the line to make it happen, and it came through. And most systems, I think as Sandy had indicated before, most systems hit road bumps along the way, and you get extension in time and usually an extension in cost, and we had neither in this case. And so to staff's credit, Linda's credit, to Debbie's credit, we have a new operating system from a financial standpoint which should work well for us into the future. So that was her report. Then we moved on to new business, and there was a recommendation from the Real Property Committee to award to Philip Smith LLC the amount of $489,622 for the public restroom renovation in Boardwalk. So I'll make that motion here. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's a lot of discussion. There was some discussion about breaking this apart and doing the renovation separate from the Boardwalk. That did not move ahead. And a lot of discussion on the history of how we got here. We have worked tirelessly to try and get Charleston County to participate in this project with us, and thus far it has, for 3 years and three administrations of Charleston County, we've hit dry holes, so we're moving ahead. So, any other discussion on this? Yes, Jimmy, please.
Question, $18,000 from Isle of Palms Fund. Isn't that the fund for the palms on Palm Boulevard?
No, it's mostly revenues from bricks, benches, and palm trees at the front beach now. It originally was it started out as the palms on Palm Boulevard.
Right.
But when we started doing the front beach project and did bricks, benches, and palm trees, we merged those revenues into that fund.
This
So that's what that is.
This transfer leaves that fund with very little money, right?
I believe so.
I think it's like, it's a couple $100.
I think the intention
Yeah,
is to just let that fund
Liquidate.
go away.
go away?
Yeah.
You're not selling bricks anymore?
No, we do sell them.
And it's
We
Christmas
still-
time.
Mhm.
Good time.
There's usually an uptick at Christmas time. Those can go into the general fund.
So,
Okay, so
Get
you're
you-
gonna wipe out that fund? Right, okay.
however, thanks for the plug. Anybody who needs a brick, please step forward.
I got a bunch of them down there.
You can get a brick.
Brick dog.
Just go in the building department and they'll work it out for you. All right, no discussion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
1 no. Okay. Approval of the extending and the existing agreement with Leolio Architecture to include construction administration of this work for the renovation and boardwalk in the amount of $14,858. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
No discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 1 no. Okay. We had on the agenda the discussion to move the shop agreement to Edie's, but that has been pulled off the agenda since Edie's has pulled out of the agreement. So a one-party agreement is not really worth discussing. We have a recommendation from Public Safety Committee to award a sole source contract for parking on for 6 parking kiosks in the amount of $70,457.10. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
Seconded. This is replacing parking kiosks in Front Beach that will take charge cards. All right. No other discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consideration within budget change order, amount of $29,996.94 for Phase 2 drainage project for the relocation of a water line dealing with the Phase 2 drainage work. So I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion. Sandy has spent a great deal of time walking the site, maybe even into the pit. Looking at the interferences that have been found between the storm drain and the water line, et cetera, and has concluded that there's nothing perfect underground. And this is a requirement to put us into a position where we wind up with a system that we can be, I won't say be proud of, but will be functioning well into the future, and we'll have the appropriate separations between the two activities.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Jimmy.
I'd like to, thank Sandy for bringing that and going into the research and going into, as we said, the pits to find it, but it really clarified it for me.
All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. I'm going to deal with these all at once. A recommendation from the ATAX Committee, approval of $5,000 for the Isle of Palms Fire Department to replace the Zodiac, approval of $5,000 for sponsorship of the 2018 Food and Wine Festival, and the approval of $5,000 for the 2018 Dunlop Junior Tennis Championship.
Mr. Mayor,
Let me separate that. Let me
Yeah.
deal with item one first. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. I see
Thank
the
you.
note. So I'll work with $5,000 in Isle of Palms Fire Department in replacement of Zodiac.
Second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Now, approval of $5,000 sponsorship for the 2018 Food and Wine Festival.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
One,
Is that
two,
3 nays?
1, 2, 3 noes. Okay.
Where did, I counted 2.
Barbara.
There's 3.
There
Oh,
were
I'm
2
sorry.
down here and 1 down there.
Approval of $5,000 for the sponsorship of the 2018 Dunlop Junior Tennis Championship. I'll make that
Second.
motion and seconded. We've done this consistently for a number of years. They play at Wild Dunes for 3 or 4 days. I don't know, they're all over the place. So all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Approval of the intergovernmental agreement between Charleston County Public Works and the City of Isle of Palms. You have in your package that agreement. I'll make a motion to approve the intergovernmental
Second.
agreement. Motion seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And we're not going to consider the solar because the time has passed and it's no longer before us. So we'll move on from there once I find my agenda here. All right. Reporting on expenditures of less than $25,000, purchase of 3 in-car cameras with radar interface and a 1-year warranty from L3 Mobile Vision, amount of $16,176. And secondly, a payment to South Carolina State Firefighters Association, $5,000 per eligible firefighter for their retirement program. So,
And these are for information only, but I do want to clarify that second one, it was not necessary for that one to be on the agenda because we just have a fiduciary responsibility there with those funds. So that's our, so it really didn't require to be on there. Laura monitors these expenditures for me, so if something hits the toggle, she
She throws
makes
it-
sure that they're on the agenda, but that one wasn't necessary to be on there.
Okay. Public Safety Committee, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Public Safety Committee met Monday, Monday, November 6th. Suzanne Chisholm appeared before us, and as previously stated in the council meeting, we approved the 5K for September 29th at the Citadel Beach House. Under old business, we had an update on efforts to remove encroachments from the right-of-way. To date, 22 property owners have been notified. 21 property owners have not come into compliance. Some have started a removal process, and others who have not responded were sent notice during the past month. The status of overgrown lots: 26 properties have been identified year-to-date. Of that number, all but 11 have been corrected by property owners. 3 are in the process, and the remaining 8 are working with the city to arrive at a solution. Update on banning balloons on the beach. The Fire Chief Graham did some research and has found that this is covered in the city's pollution ordinance, and the need now is for public education via the website and schools. We had an update on parking at the rec center. The parking spaces have been marked and numbered, so it will be easier to identify vehicles that are staying there too long. I believe there's a 48-hour suspense time on parking there. So we talked about overnight parking signs, but with the number of signs we have on the island now, decision was made that we don't need any other signs. We've got the spaces marked. We can patrol it and identify them easier, so that's the way we'll do it. We also talked about the parking on contract, which we just approved. talked about the Zodiac boat and the need for that, which we just approved. And I'll move on to the departmental reports. I'll start with the fire department report, which was given by Chief Graham. We responded to a mutual aid request for a structure fire in Mount Pleasant. We had a call for swimmers in distress. There was an animal bite. There was a structure fire, which ended up being a fire on a stove. And in October, personnel responded to 83 calls. Of that number, 48 were EMS calls. The pre-incident surveys are current, and renewals will begin in January 2018. And 14 fire inspections done during the month of October. 52 violations were found. Personnel received an average of 39 hours of training in October, and a class in basic first aid and CPR was held for the Coast Guard and a group of Boy Scouts. And personnel also assisted in the connector run and the SEAL Kids swim. When we have a community event, we can count on all of our public safety personnel to be involved. And I want to make a special thanks to Chief Graham for her service in Puerto Rico. Chief went down and did some medical assistance down there. Chief, I think you were gone for a month, so thank you very, very fine. It's gratifying to know that we have your caliber of people serving our city. I'll move on to the fire department, given by Chief Buchanan.
Police department.
Police department. I knew that.
20 years he doesn't get it right.
Starting to go. The first call was from a house sitter who went to a house and found two people in the house that weren't supposed to be there. Of course, they were apprehended. Vehicle crash into a dumpster. We got that guy too. The sad part of that is the guy was intoxicated and had a small child with him. So the child had to go to social services. While the subject was in the police cruiser, he kicked and did $2,800 worth of damage to the police cruiser from inside the back seat. Kicked the door, bowed the door, hit the cage. Just terrible thing. Anyway. There were 181 property security checks notices, and 7 you could have been the victim of a crime notices given out. Communications specialists responded to 4,650 calls, of which 4,100 were for the police department. 32 traffic tickets were issued from a total of 308 traffic stops. Of the 20 arrests made during the month, 6 were for underage drinking. This is not an island where you want to be underage and drinking, because our police department will find you. Had some animal rescues, a seagull and a wood duck. And in the criminal investigation, 8 cases were carried over from September, and they had 9 cases that are carried over into November. There were 16 noise complaints, 3 received citations, 7 warnings, and 6 were determined to be unfounded. And there were 11 coyote sightings reported in October. And we have trapped 1 coyote. And that's in the standard cage trap. That's not a soft trap, which we're ahead of Sullivan's Island. That's all I have.
Okay, very good.
One quick
Any
question.
questions for public safety?
Yes, sir. And Linda told me this morning that we are continuing trapping, or trying to trap. How many cages do we have out?
I think today there's only 1 out, but there will be more out. When I checked today, there was only 1 out.
Thank you.
Okay. Any public works, please?
Okey-dokey. The meeting was held on November 1st, and Vice Chairman Ward conducted the meeting since the chair had laryngitis and couldn't be picked up on the recorder. So the first thing was minutes of October 4th were approved. There were no citizens' comments, so we went on to the director's report, which was very extensive, and I'll go through it very quickly. But most of it was cleaning up after Hurricane Irma, and also mowing beach access paths. Charleston County assisted with some of the disaster debris, and also a contractor in cleaning stormwater collection boxes. In addition, Edie's was here after the hurricane, cleaned and vacuumed, restructured several ditches. The director said also that SCDOT was also on the island at 52nd, 53rd, and 54th on the non-ocean side of Palm Boulevard. Edie's is also working on the 41st Avenue ditch from Hartnett to Waterway Boulevard. Administrator Tucker confirmed that the amendment to Edie's contract had been executed and is in force. And I want everybody to know I have received really positive feedback from residents who notice how more often they're seeing Edie's and how the ditches are being cleaned so much more often. So that was a good thing on our part. In the month of October, garbage collections were up and yard debris collections were down from the same month in 2016. Vehicle maintenance budget was significantly impacted by a diesel motor rebuild, but we're still going to be under budget. We then went to a discussion of assignment of the contract with Mr. Shupp, but as we've just heard, Edie's pulled out of that contract, so we'll have to revisit that through Public Works as soon as Bill finds someone else that wants to do what he does so well, and that's the problem. We had an update on the MPDES project, which is the washdown. We're almost 98% complete. We're closing out the process with just some punchline things to be done. We had an update on the city compactor, which is right behind the dinghy. It had become rat infested and smelly and awful, but the site now is cleaned weekly, actually washed underneath that compactor. But we're still having some trouble with the business side of it. We need to work more with our businesses to be sure that they're actually putting the materials into the compactor and not on the sides of the compactor. Also looking at the grease pits that are there, making sure that they're being taken care of. However, we all agree that it's a vast improvement over what we had before, where it was smelly and rat infested, and we didn't want to even say that we owned it, and we've come a long, long way. Kudos to everybody that was involved in that effort. Update on Phase 2 drainage. We discussed the $30,000 change of order, but we'll be able to move pretty quickly on that now that it's been approved. An upgrade on replacement of the underground storage tanks. The RFB document is out. It's taken us a long time because it was much more complicated than we expected, but we were so glad we got help in doing it because nobody on staff had dealt with underground tanks before. The deadline for questions is December 1st, and the deadline to submit bids is December 14th at 2 p.m. So you can go online and you can see the transition of all of the timelines of all of these RFPs and RFBs if you're interested. Then we had a discussion of the personnel needs in the Public Works. The island's needs for Public Works has increased exponentially, and yet we have done nothing to look at the structure or the way that we have our personnel assigned in Public Works. So we're going to have a discussion of how we can best do everything that needs to be done besides just trash and garbage. When you think Public Works, that's what comes to mind, but there are all sorts of other things that Public Works has to do. The signs, the beach walkovers, making sure all of them are clean, the grass that's on the Waterway Boulevard, all of these other things that falls into Public Works is now just being done when there's time. So we really need to look at what personnel we have, what personnel we need, and there was a discussion in terms of needing supervisors for these various things. But in my mind, and I think in the mind of some other committee members, we also have to have people to do the work, not just supervise. So we're really going to look at the whole structure of the Public Works Department and how Donnie can get some help in doing everything that he's responsible for. We did not make any decisions. This is just the first volley of this discussion, but hoping that going forward we can get some outsourcing of information of how other municipalities do it so that we can kind of piggyback on what works, especially on a seacoast town. New business. There was a discussion of blocked drainage ditches along Palm Boulevard due to driveway extensions. There's some real miscommunications in terms of who is responsible for when you go to SCDOT and you get a permit to put a driveway and put the pipe underneath your driveway and cover it over. There's print in that agreement, in that permit agreement, that says the homeowner is responsible for keeping that ditch clean and keeping that pipe clean. But so often when that property is sold to another homeowner, that information doesn't get passed on. So Linda and her group get all these phone calls saying, you know, my property is flooded. What are you going to do? Well, we have to do a better job of communicating to property owners that if in fact they have received an SCDOT permit, it is their responsibility to clean that pipe, clean that ditch. Now, there are occasions when, if it's not too complicated and it's not going to take too much time, the city will do it, especially if SCDOT isn't, you know, replying to the homeowner in an expeditious manner, which sometimes happens, right, Linda?
That's
Sometimes.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
So we try to be good citizens, but the city cannot possibly be responsible for every single pipe that has been permitted by SCDOT. So we're looking at what kind of communication program, either on the website or social media, to let folks know that if you have a problem, first find out if you have a permit from SCDOT, and that's your first line of defense. Because if you call us, we're simply going to have to tell you to call SCDOT. So this is not a problem that has just cropped up, but it's getting more and more as we have more and more building. We're seeing more of these driveways over the pipes. Miscellaneous business, we discussed the intergovernmental agreement, which we've already discussed at Ways and Means. And then we also, Vice Chairman Ward expressed dismay that Mr. Burke's drainage issue on 32nd Avenue was not included on the agenda. And we explained that in order for Mr. Burke's particular situation to be dealt with, we had to get our engineer's advice first. And we had decided to go forward and do that and spend the $13,000 was needed. At that time, the city administrator felt that we had addressed the issue. But we're going to put it back on the agenda to make sure that after we get Mr. Stevens' report, that then we can say to Mr. Burke what happens going forward. So it will be back on the agenda for the next meeting. Their next meeting date is 11 a.m. Wednesday, January 9th, 2018. And so goes my report.
Thank you very much. Nice report. Recreation Committee did not have a meeting, but has something to say.
Naturally. I just want to remind everybody that the Holiday Street Festival is this Saturday from 2 to 7, and the tree lighting will be at 5:30. There'll be all kinds of festivities, and so come down and party on and get in the holiday spirit.
Bingo.
That's good.
And Norma, you got the weather under control? Okay.
I'm working
All right.
She's batting 1,000.
All right, Personnel Committee, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll make my report very brief and depart a little bit. I'm going to defer to Councilman Battelli in just a moment, but we did meet and we interviewed candidates, several candidates, and we recommended, and I will make this a motion, recommend Philip Pounds as a financial long-term financial background to replace the vacancy on the Planning Commission.
All right, motion
Second.
seconded. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And then as far as appointments to boards and commissions, I'd like to make the motion that we consider all reappointments for all boards, members, and commissions.
Second.
Okay. Would you, just for the record, you're moving to reappoint Ron Denton and Lisa Safford to the Planning Commission, and reappointing Julie's Spell and Susan Haney to the Accommodations Tax Committee, and Pete Doherty to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and Ann Sherrill and Alan Schultz, whatever, to the Code Board of Appeals. Correct?
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the reappointments, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, done.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to specifically recognize Councilman Patelli for his outstanding 20-year service as a council member to the city.
Question. Is this the longest running member of council ever?
As far as I know, it is.
All right. Wow.
Okay.
Nerves of steel.
All right.
Dances out.
You were going to do something else?
I'm going to defer to Marty to, we did complete the evaluation of the city administrator, and as Marty was chair of the Personnel Committee that recommended her hire, I would like to give him the honor of handling that.
Thank you, Councilman Harrington. And again, I was fortunate enough to be on that committee when Linda was hired in October of 2000. Wow. I am getting old. You're not, only me. And I'm going to tell you this, in going through the selection process, we probably interviewed 8 people. Some flew in, some drove in. By far, Linda was the person for the job, and she continues to be the right person for the job today. And I'm proud to announce that Linda scored a 4.5 out of scale. That goes from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. And as one of my last motions, I'd like to make a motion that we give our full endorsement to our city administrator.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
You're endorsed.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right. Patrick, you still have sweepstakes before you.
Oh, yeah, okay, a couple other issues. In terms of openings, we have still have one part-time animal control officer vacancy, and we have one full-time Parks and Facilities Recreation Supervisor in the Recreation Department available. October sweepstakes winners general government was Desiree Garcia. Fire was Battalion Chief Richard Hathaway, and the Police Department was Sergeant Derek Ambus, and Public Works is William Cease. And our next meeting is January 3rd at 3 p.m.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions for personnel? Let's move on to real property.
Our real property meeting was called to order November 6th with all members attending. Under citizens' comments, Mr. Steve Halleck spoke to the committee about the need to dredge Hamlin Creek from the Jimmy Carroll Marina to the Exchange Club. They're just in the beginning of this organization and process, but he came to the city hoping for some help. Councilmember Rice responded to his plea that the group needed to form some type of an association and engage an attorney to draw up an agreement with the city stating that while the city would be a permittee, the property holders would pay all of the costs of dredging. It's in the primary stages, so there's a lot more to come on that. Under Marina Comments, Brian Berrigan informed the committee that he plans to close the store from roughly January 16th for about 3 days. He'll be replacing the air conditioners and will do needed work in the attic while he's there and work on the siding. Under old business, we reviewed the 2 bids for the restroom project. I think we've covered that. That was passed tonight. On beach renourishment, the emergency berm is done and holding up quite well so far. The big renourishment project, again, is going to start the end of December, beginning of January, and hopefully once the project gets started, it'll move quickly and should be done on or about May 1st. Again, Sandy covered the underground storage replacement tanks, so we'll skip over that. We discussed the Marina Project, which you can read in the committee minutes. Since the referendum for funding the work was defeated, the next steps will be up to the new council. We had an update on the beach access signage that we're having done. The city has paid a contractor a deposit for new signs, which will be placed at 5th, 8th, 9th, 21st, 25th, 28th, 42nd, at the sea cabins, and at the public restrooms once the design's okay, with a 4 to 5 week manufacturing. Tenant reports I didn't have, and you don't either?
And I
meant to ask
believe
you.
everybody's current.
Everyone's current.
Yeah.
Okay, good news, always good news. The next meeting will be on January 9th, but who knows, that might change, so check the city's website. That's it.
Thank you very much.
One minor correction.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I think the dredging at Breach Inlet was not from the Jimmy Carroll Marina, but from the boathouse on down.
Okay, which is sort of right there, right? Where does your marina start? Is that a different marina?
Boathouse is the very first property.
No, I got
Is
that.
it-
Okay.
think
Well,
he
again,
said-
preliminary
Specifically
stages.
said.
Jimmy Carroll Marina?
Yes.
Yes.
But it's very preliminary. They have to get organized and figure it out.
Thank you.
Suggestion
Yes.
that we seek funding for revegetation of the dunes.
Yeah, good point. Because they're sitting there awfully bare and barren.
And I have to believe there are some groups that would provide funds available for that purpose.
Point taken.
There's usually also people that will volunteer to install.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an issue though, because we've had some revegetation done on the previous berm, and they did non-indigenous, not beach plants. We had some fir trees put in the dunes down at Second, which is an interesting concept.
Yeah, it's
So-
not what I had in mind.
Something to look into.
Sea oats comes to mind.
See, that's right.
All right. Please, Sandy.
On the marina tenants, we've noticed that there's some parking of RVs on the property at the marina. I understand from the parking regulations of the contract, you can have parking for boats and trailers, et cetera, but there's nothing that mentions, any kind of Airstream or camper on the property. And I noticed it was there over Thanksgiving, and there were some social media comments about, whether or not we're allowing that or not. And I just wondered if there was any clarification of whether we do allow parking of RVs at our marina or don't.
Mr. Mayor, I discussed this with Brian Berrigan, and as Wild Dunes does not allow RVs to be parked in driveways in Wild Dunes, he allows them for a fee, and they're not allowed to stay in it, but he allows them a place to park temporarily, but there is no overnight stay.
There's
They're
no
they're
overnight
there
stay by
overnight,
people.
but
By
there's no
people.
people
By people.
there.
They're empty.
Right.
Sleeping in them.
Right.
And this is done in the off-season, and it seems like a positive thing. I mean, I don't see what it hurts. Obviously, it couldn't compete with boats being put in. That would be unrealistic. I mean, we wouldn't want to do that.
So it wasn't just for Thanksgiving?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
And it was for a 3-day period. Guests at Wild Dunes. They were on traveling and in visiting people in Wild Dunes. They couldn't park their vehicle in Wild Dunes, so for a fee, he allowed them to park, but not allowed to stay overnight,
But
to
it-
reside,
Not to lie.
just to park it.
Does the lease agreement allow that?
I don't think that
My
there's,
understanding is that as the lease agreement states, he is for marina operations and not for commercial RV parking.
I don't think that there is anything in his lease that would prohibit that on an occasional basis. And this is just my recollection from what I've observed over the years, that around the holiday time when family members of some of our residents who happen to live in Wild Dunes come into town and they have nowhere to park. They've allowed a couple of them in the off-season to pay to park at that location. Certainly, we can review the lease, and if that is something that is that an interpretation of the lease would prohibit their doing, then if it's the will of council for us to enforce that segment of the lease, then we can do it. I would submit that there are probably some property owner voters that would be affected and would have to find other places for their family members to park those
I just want to see
RVs on
if it's in the lease or not. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, we can certainly
Yeah,
look,
let's
take a
look
hard
into
look
that.
at that and make
They
sure
they
there's
could
no
park in the right of way
prohibition.
and nobody'd have any heartburn.
Right. That's, I was going to say, we have had it in the past where they do park in the right-of-way on 41st or places, you know, where there's parking lots. So to me, this is better. But also, I seem to remember when we had, we allowed, like, rigs to park in the municipal lot. So I don't know if that, you know, could also be an option, that people who were truck drivers out here would park their rig in the municipal lot. We allowed that.
We'll look into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's look
Thank you.
into it.
Okay.
So,
Nothing else for real property. Accommodations, we've gone through accommodations tax reports. We're now up to introduction of new bills, adoption of a resolution for the adoption of a revised Charleston County hazard mitigation plan. I will make a motion to adopt the resolution and suspend the reading.
Second.
Oh, God, you really don't want to.
Unless you want to read it.
No.
As your last.
No. All right. All in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We
Good.
have fun, don't we?
Oh, that's done. All right, no other miscellaneous business. We do have a brief meeting scheduled for next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. I hope everybody can be there. Before we adjourn and go into executive, what's the matter?
Nothing.
Oh, sorry.
Jimmy was talking, not me.
They're passing notes. I
Marty's
saw.
asked for an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, council, city administrator, department heads, citizens of the Isle of Palms, and whoever else may be here.
In the listening world.
First, thanks for letting me serve for 20 years. It's been an honor. It's been a good 20 years for me and also for the city. We've seen many improvements on the island through the years. I've got a list of 65, but I'll only read a few of them. First of all, the purchase of the marina. Very, very good that we bought that. The additions and improvements to the recreation center. We rebuilt Fire Station 2 and the Public Safety Building. The CALEA recertification and the police department. We've been through numerous of them and come through with flying colors every time. We've been upgraded to ISO 1. Thank you to the fire department. We've got recycling island-wide as well as beach recycling. We were one of the first communities to get in on the recycling and the very first one to get in on beach recycling. The parking plan. Our excellent financial condition, which you heard just a little while ago, and as I said, many others. This couldn't have been accomplished without the insight and expertise of the city's excellent staff. Special thanks to Linda Tucker for her professionalism and leadership for the city through the years, and Linda continues to exceed our expectations, as she has year after year. Mayor Cronin, thank you for your 9 years of service. The city's done well under your leadership, and again is in excellent financial shape. I might also mention that Mayor Cronin was on the Planning Commission planning to land in this job when the more stringent building rules were put into effect. And again, all of you, thanks for allowing me to serve.
Normally at this time, we go into executive session, but I'm going to do one thing And before we do that, because I told my wife I would, I'm going to drop the gavel. I too want to thank everybody. The staff has been exemplary in supporting us here. We come in here with a lot of ignorance, and we leave with a lot of admiration for all that you do, and look forward to seeing the city prosper well into the future as we stay afloat. So thank you all. So our next item is a motion to go in executive session to hear legal advice, which requires us to excuse the audience.
Clear the room.
So I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And we're into executive session. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. It won't be long, but tell me when you're up. You're good? Okay. We're out of executive session. We made no decisions. We heard from our attorney. I would like now to make a motion to authorize the city administrator to execute the certain settlement agreements as recommended by the city's litigation attorney in the letter dated July 14, 2017, from Thurman, Kirshner, and Timbers, PA, and approved by the city council at the July 18 special council meeting. Motion is seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. Thank you.
Adjourn.
Yes, we got to do a picture, Patrick, don't run.
Adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn.
Adjourned.
Drop the mic.